everybody, and welcome to another video in my video series all about how I'm using virtual reality to fight my fear of flying. In this video I thought I would do something a little bit different. I'm going to base this video off of dealing with taking off, the takeoff of a flight, but I'm not going to write out a script beforehand. I'm sort of going to talk through a takeoff in real time and sort of just see where it goes. And it might be a little bit different than the normal, but what I wanted to do was sort of give that feel of something that was a little bit more visceral, a little bit more real time, give that sensation that, this is happening, sort of unscripted and just as I sort of think things through. So right now I'm on the Zibo 737. I'm in Xplane 11 with my Oculus Rift in virtual reality. And we're taking off right now from Miami, Florida, with the destination of Atlanta, Georgia. And I'm going to go ahead and find my seat and sort of talk through some of my thinking about this first leg. So for right now, I'm just going to go forward a little bit. And right now we are here in the seat. So on a normal flight in real life, I would be probably fairly nervous right at this stage. I've gotten on the plane. All the anticipation has sort of come to this point of getting actually on the plane. Fortunately, there's a lot to do up until this point. Ticketing, getting through the line, putting your stuff away, and so it sort of distracts me from any kind of fear and anxiety. But once I sit down, I'm in my seat, that's when I have time to start thinking about things, realizing that I'm on a plane. One thing that's helpful for me personally that I've mentioned in the past is sitting in the window seat itself. I get a feeling, it helps with for me personally, sometimes I feel a little bit claustrophobic on flights, and sitting in the window seat helps with that. For other people, who have that same sensation of claustrophobia or panic or anxiety on flights, sitting in the window seat is not actually a good idea. So it's just depends on what you personally feel most comfortable with, and for me it's sitting right here in the window seat. So on a real flight I would be sitting here, I'd be looking outside, I'd be noticing that we're starting to get pushed back from the gate or starting to leave. Probably on a real flight there would be some conversation by the flight attendants. The intro safety video will be playing, or the flight attendants will be talking about all the safety measures that need to happen. We'd be putting on seatbelts. If you're flying with companions, kids, what have you, maybe talking to them. But yeah, so right now we're getting pushed back. I'll probably be starting to think about, paying attention to my breathing a little bit, thinking about reminding myself some of the mantras that I might be doing, or getting some of the tools that I might have ready, external tools, like thinking about taking a look at some things I've maybe written down ahead of time, reminders to myself, mantras, things to look at on a piece of paper. I could also be, using, at this age, probably not necessarily using noise-canceling headphones. I usually try to stay aware of what's going on until we're sort of done taxiing. I like to not use the noise-canceling headphones until, if allowed, at least as far as the airline policy goes. I usually wait until we're closer to the actual takeoff to put those on. So maybe I'll be looking at my phone. I've talked about this in other flights, in other videos. I've spoken about using games as a distraction, so I may be playing a math game or some sort of for me, games that sort of have to do quick calculations or quick movements or thinking, help me, especially when I'm at my most jittery, gives me something to be a little bit, just focus my brain on or distract myself a little bit. So I may be doing that. What else may I be doing? Deep breathing. I mentioned that a little bit. Breathing in, holding it, then letting it out. Breathing in through the mouth, holding it, then breathing in through the nose, holding it, then breathing out through the mouth. So I could actually feel that relaxing myself even now, even in the simulation. Calming myself down a little bit and thinking about being able to sort of focus on the physiological response. The great thing about deep breathing and paced breathing is your body sort of can't help it but to relax just a little bit. So I like to do that. I like to combine that with some other tactics. Then at this stage, it's a little bit delayed. Usually there's not as much of a wait here, but as you can see, we're hearing the engines go on a little bit to give the plane a little bit of thrust to start moving. We're rotating a little bit to the left, so we're going to start taxiing here shortly to the runway. In real life, as far as explanations go, they've probably gotten clearance to taxi. I'm not simulating any kind of other air traffic, but in real life, of course, pilots and planes have to wait their turn. There's a lot of procedures and regulations that they have to go through. All as part of making things safe. It's a very well-oiled machine with decades of practice and lots of oversight, and everybody can just doing their best and making sure that everything gets done safely. So sometimes that makes things take a little bit longer. Sometimes that's what's responsible for some of the larger delays. I personally, whenever there's a delay, as annoying as it might be, I am always happy that I would get delayed by something, because people are being safety conscious, of course, rather than just sort of ignoring it and sacrificing safety at the expense of convenience. I'd much rather sacrifice convenience temporarily, at least for safety. So anyway, assuming that the plane doesn't have any inordinate delays, we are taxiing now, and we're just in the process of finding the right runway, and we're not even finding it. We get instructions from ATC and know exactly where to go. And at this stage, I would probably be continuing to maybe listen to something on my cell phone, maybe play games a little bit on my cell phone or pencil and paper, working on my breathing as well. I'd be repeating my mantras as well, reminding myself that flying is inherently safe. Flying is inherently safe. Flying is inherently safe. I would be thinking about all the things that I've practiced in VR or thought about beforehand, that I'm in control of my emotions, I'm in control of my reactions, and I have a lot of tools that can keep me calm, reassuring myself about those things, thinking about, for me personally, it's very helpful to think about the sort of understanding the science and the technology behind aviation. So I'll think about how safe airline travel is, how safe flying is, how in aerodynamics the plane basically it's not falling through the sky, it's not falling out of the air. It is it wants to stay up there, it wants to stay up in the air, and thinking about all the reasons why that's true, and thinking about literally the thousands of flights that happen every day, tens of thousands of flights that happen every day, and how everything is safe. So at this stage, as you can see here, if I look outside, we are just short of the runway, and this is a common thing that airplanes big and small are asked to do, especially at a busier airport like Miami, for example. So at this stage, probably we'll be hearing some different noises on the plane. A lot of times, at some point during the taxiing, or at least during the run up here to the airport, the flaps will go down. The engine, of course, as we're needing more power to taxi and to move around, might cycle a little bit. And there you can hear that. I think that's the flaps starting to go down. And if you look down there, those are, I believe those are external fuel tanks. Or those are part of the flap system itself, and those are going down there. So that's a normal part of takeoff. The flaps starting to be adjusted to the takeoff position. Those change the shape of the wing to give us, in this case, a little bit more lift to get up in the air easier. So that's a common noise that'll happen pretty much every flight. Whether you hear it or pay attention to it or not, that depends, but flaps are definitely going to be used no matter what. And then shortly we should be getting out of here. Yeah, we're starting to move forward a little bit. And we'll hear the engine cycle up. Continue to focus on my breathing and relax and think about how aviation is safe, how plane travel is safe, and it's an established, well-regulated, well taken care of form of transportation, form of technology, and way of life for thousands of people, tens of thousands of people around the world. So right now we're getting close. We're going to be taking off here very shortly. And a few things are going to happen once we take off. First of all, we're not going to feel this in VR, obviously, but in real life, you're going to, once the engine thrust gets applied, you will feel pushed back against your seat. You'll feel a lot of what's called G-forces. And what we're feeling is a small fraction of what fighter pilots might feel. We might feel 1.5 Gs, and the fighter pilot might go up to, I don't even know, 4, 3, something like that. Don't quote me on that one, but it's the same sort of force of acceleration that you'd feel in your car if you floor the accelerator or even press it. It's just magnified, obviously, because we have very powerful engines here that are going to get us off the ground and keep us safe in the air. So now we can hear the engine spooling up. And this is when we would start to feel a little bit of that acceleration, of that push, because that plane is starting to go off, and we're going to start to see the runway start to pass by very quickly. We're going to start to feel a little bit more of a rocking of the plane. It's going to get much louder. And when it gets to a certain speed, we will start to go up in the air. Now you probably hear
flight not started.
Well, that was just a function of the simulator, but in real life at this stage, you'll probably hear the landing gear going up at some point. There you go. You could feel it also, depending on where the plane you're sitting. And right now, the flaps are also going to start coming back up. Those flaps that went down to help us with our takeoff. Some of those, it depends on the flight configuration, the weather, and sort of the flight plan that they have followed. Depends on sort of how those get applied and taken off. But in this case, I think, they are fully up now at this stage. And if you're sitting here by the window, if you have a view of the wing, you'll probably notice some wing flaps, which is totally normal, and that's what you want to see. The way modern planes are designed, they're designed to flex, and what that does is distribute sort of the force or the stresses that the plane might undergo going through wind. Just as the normal part of flying, distributes it evenly along the frame of the plane. And you can think of, if you see a tree blowing in the wind, or windy day and blowing a tree, the tree bends. It does that so it doesn't snap, it doesn't break, and so the wing flex may be a little bit disconcerting, but it's totally normal and it's actually safer than it used to be in aviation. So at this stage, we are going to be continuing to ascend. We get to a certain level in the flight, which is probably right about now. And depending on the weather, the seatbelt sign may go off. The captain may come on and address everyone and have an initial sort of conversation with everybody. And the flight attendants will probably unbuckle and start to get ready for their first round of service for the day. Maybe some drinks, maybe some snacks, come around to check on everybody, and we'll get to that stage. If the weather's bumpy, sometimes the captain will keep the flight attendant seated for longer. There are some flights where they just have to sit it out for the whole thing, and that's a normal thing too. Sometimes there's turbulence, and that's just a fact of life. It's uncomfortable, but it's not unsafe. And in that turbulence, they do their best to avoid it, and a lot of times there's a lot of different methods, radar, other reports from other pilots, ATC instructions that will help pilots avoid that kind of thing. But sometimes they actually, there's sort of no choice. You just have to go through it, and that's fine. It's not a problem. But sometimes it does mean that the flight attendants in the service for snacks or meals has to get delayed or even circumvented. So on the flight today, we've got it passing through a little bit of clouds, but we don't have too much turbulence right now. So in real life, they would probably be starting to go around. I would be thinking to myself about all the ways that flying is safe. I would continue to do my deep breathing, continue to talk about my mantras. And at this stage, for me, the takeoff is one of the more nervous points of the flight. The higher I get, the closer to the cruise, I start to calm down a little bit more. So at this point right now, it would probably be, I'd say, moderate to heavy anxiety. But of course, managing that with all my toolkits, reminding myself of the things I've learned about aviation, saying my mantras to myself over again. I would be doing deep breathing. If I need to, I would be distracting myself with games. And, like I mentioned before, probably way well before this, I would have had my noise canceling headphones, which goes a long way to helping me out. And as you can see, we're rising above the clouds here. I think we're getting to a point which is, I would say, fairly starting to get close to our cruising altitude. I think we probably have maybe 10,000 feet to go. I don't know exactly, maybe 10 to 15,000 more feet to go. But the modern planes can get up pretty high pretty quickly. Sometimes, another thing that we'll be noticing a lot during flight in general, but especially during climb, is different sort of feelings of being light and being heavy in your seat. That sort of feeling when you go over a little bump in a car, or crest the top of a roller coaster, or that feeling of sort of like being lighter than you are, being sort of thrust upward a little bit. And that's a perfectly normal thing about flight. I think there's a lot of good explanations for why that is, but essentially it's different changes, like slight changes in speed or in pitch that are normal things. So if the plane is going sort of up at a certain pitch and then it has to sort of level out for a minute, the plane is totally fine, and the plane is leveling out, or it's changing pitch just a little bit, still climbing maybe, but as our bodies are sensitive to those types of changes, we'll start to feel like as if we're still going in that old direction that the plane is going in. So, for example, you can feel it a little bit when the plane turns to the side, and that's a normal thing. You can feel a little bit heavy in the seat when the plane starts to accelerate in a different direction, and the speed changes, the pitch changes. So those are all normal sensations. They may be a little bit disconcerting, but they are not, nothing to be worried about. If you notice, there's a little bit of juddering right now. That's not trying to simulate anything. That's just my computer having a hard time keeping up with everything. But overall, we've got a fairly smooth flight today, and we are pretty much out of the takeoff phase. So with that, I'd like to just review a few of the things that I do real quick. Again, the takeoff is comprises the taxiing and the whole process of getting on board the plane and getting ready to take off and then actually taking off. The acceleration you feel, the speed you feel, the sounds you hear up the flaps and the landing gear, the feelings you feel being light in your seat, being heavy in your seat, and all those things I think about from a technical perspective, understanding what it is about aviation that those comprise, and also think about it from the perspective of reminding myself that flying is inherently safe, that turbulence may feel uncomfortable, but it's not unsafe, that I have a lot of tools that I can use to help keep myself in control, such as deep breathing, distracting myself, reminding myself of different mantras and sayings, and thinking about being in control of myself and being in charge of my own space and not being trapped on the plane. And ultimately just looking around and trying to get out of my head as much as possible, and if possible even enjoy the experience a little bit. So I hope you guys appreciate this video. This worked out. Like I said, it's a little bit of a different tactic this time, a little bit more free-flowing. But if you have any questions or comments, please feel free. I'd love to hear them. Any sort of critiques or anything like that, I always love to hear that as well. And if you like my videos, please do hit those like and subscribe buttons. They help a lot. And hopefully this works out, and we'll be doing another video shortly about the climb and cruise portion of the flight. So thanks very much.